If trees were tall and grasses short, as in some crazy tale, if here and there the sea were blue beyond the breaking pale, if a fixed fire hung in the air to warm me one day through, if deep green hair grew on great hills, I know what I should do. In dark I lie, dreaming that there are great eyes cold or kind, and twisted streets and silent doors and living men behind. Let storm clouds come, better an hour, and leave to weep and flight, than all the ages I have ruled the empires of the night. I think that if they gave me leave within the world to stand, I would be good through all the day I spent in fairyland. They should not hear a word from me of selfishness or scorn. If only I could find the door, if only I were born. William Wilberforce, a Christian politician living in 18th century England, was dedicated to an event that could remain silent no more. In 18th century England, poverty-stricken masses drowned their sorrows in cheap gin, gambling, moral decadence, and cruel animal sports. Infant mortality and child labour abounded. Kidnapped by European slave traders in their African villages, Africans were tightly packed into slave ships and exported to the West Indies. Their treatment was worse than animals. Rather than being seen as the image of God cut in ebony, theories developed that Negroes were not a part of the human race but part of a distinct species like the orangutan. Meanwhile, in the West Indies, British plantation owners grew exceedingly rich, growing crops like sugarcane, farmed by thousands of African slaves. Plantation owners used their wealth to buy large estates in Britain and seats of power in Parliament. Britain prospered significantly through the trafficking of humans. In general, the slave trade was regarded as a convenient and necessary commodity. Society had become as inhuman as its treatment of the Africans, and like John Wesley, Wilberforce dreamt of putting the soul back in our nation. In 2007, statistics showed that around 6.7 million abortions had occurred in the UK since 1967. Many girls and women decide to have abortions for a whole host of reasons. She can be a successful, mature career woman with a grown-up family not wanting to depart from her comfortable lifestyle. Maybe she is a teenage schoolgirl pressurized into having an abortion by her boyfriend who threatens to finish with her if she doesn't get rid of it. She is a mother of 4 who is already finding it hard to cope with an exhausting workload in a house that is bursting at the seams and a husband on a low income. She is a mother living on social welfare. She is a woman who risks losing her marriage and home if her husband discovered her secret affair. She could be guilty of a promiscuous lifestyle. Tragically, she may often be a victim of rape. It can never be underestimated that abortion is a highly painful, sensitive and emotional issue, but I believe that it is an issue that as Christians we can't ignore. So how do we start looking at such a highly controversial, emotional and even politically incorrect subject? The Bible says that in 445 BC, Nehemiah, a Jewish exile, was serving the great Persian king Artaxerxes I in the royal court at Susa when reports reached him that Jerusalem had been attacked, the city was ruined, and its walls and gates were destroyed. Nehemiah was distraught with grief, so the king granted him permission to return and rebuild Jerusalem city's walls and equipped him with building materials. Once in Jerusalem, Nehemiah called the people to start the work of repairing the walls and gates of the city, but they found the walls so badly damaged and burnt, and what's more, there was so much opposition and intimidation rising up against them from local authorities that the people in Judah said, "The strength of the labourers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot build the wall." But he didn't give in. After 52 days, the walls were repaired and national security was restored. Wilberforce didn't give in. After 46 years, his dream came true and slavery was abolished. In fact, Malcolm Muggeridge said, if William Wilberforce were alive today, the one issue he would take up with as much zeal as he took up the issue of slavery in the 19th century would be the issue of abortion. My conviction is that in the UK Church we find ourselves in a similar position today. In the area of abortion there is so much rubble that we don't even know how to rebuild the wall and have maybe given up trying. But the way to deal with the rubble is one piece at a time. In wrestling with the subject of God's judgment versus mercy, I was reminded of a tragic but true story that Philip Yancey wrote in his book, The Jesus I Never Knew, about the experiences of a friend of his who worked with down and outs in Chicago.
A prostitute came to me in wretched straits, homeless, sick, unable to buy food for her 2-year-old daughter. And through sobs and tears, she told me she had been renting out her daughter, 2 years old, to men interested in kinky sex. She made more renting out her daughter for an hour than she could earn on her own in a night. She had to do it, she said, to support her own drug habit. I could hardly bear hearing her sordid story. For one thing, it made me legally liable. I am required to report cases of child abuse. I had no idea what to say to this woman. At last I asked if she had ever thought of going to church for help. I will never forget that look of pure, naive shock that crossed her face. "Church," she cried. "Why would I ever go there? I was already feeling terrible about myself, and they just make me feel worse."
Isaiah says all of us like sheep have gone astray, each of us according to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. Isaiah foretold the work of Jesus on the cross. Everyone's hands have done things worthy of God's wrath. But when those cruel nails were driven into his hands, he took the punishment that should have been ours. For each one of us, there are places we should never have walked, precious things we have trampled underfoot. He took the punishment for those sins too. He took in his side a spear, the sins others have done to us. The cross of Christ is the place of divine exchange, where God's mercy triumphs over judgment. And it's against this backdrop that we need to press on